Welcome back, friends, to my channel Technowits, where I post technical videos. And currently, I'm working on a series which is on FSMO roles in Active Directory. So, in my previous videos, I have created videos on FSMO roles like forest level FSMO roles, which are domain naming master and schema master. And currently, I'm working on the domain level FSMO roles, and one of the FSMO role is PDC Emulator that we will talk today. In my last video, I talked about infrastructure master. So today we will discuss the PDC emulator, which is the primary domain control emulator. So let us go through what we will get to learn in today's session. PDC emulator, the primary domain control emulator FSMO role. So we will look into the overview, the definition, key functions, how it helps, how the PDC emulator helps in Kerberos authentication. And because on Kerberos, I'll only discuss the role of PDC emulator related to Kerberos authentication. Kerberos authentication is a whole chapter that we will discuss in some other video. But in this video, we will discuss based on like how Kerberos authentication and PDC emulator, the role of PDC emulator is there. How PDC emulator helps in its password change. There are configurations which we can change on the PDC emulator, and the time synchronization. So we'll look into all these concepts. Time synchronization on the domain controllers, handling account lockouts. So if you are doing a password change, if the account is getting locked, if you the time synchronization and Kerberos authentication, if it is failing, you can always think of the first reason is the PDC emulator on your machine. So let us go ahead and discuss the PDC emulator in detail. Before that, I would like to tell you I'm working on another YouTube channel which is based on the stories, the literatures, and recently I have published stories by Rabindranath Tagore in English and stories by Munshi Premchand in Hindi. So I'll put the link in the description. You can go ahead and watch if you love reading literature, listening to it, then you can go to my other channel and watch. Let us start with PDC emulator FSMO role in Active Directory. So first, let us talk about overview of the PDC emulator role. So the PDC emulator, which is the primary domain control emulator, is one of the 5 flexible single master operation role in Active Directory. This role is crucial in ensuring compatibility and synchronization within the domain environment. Here are the key functions of the PDC emulator. So that is, it is one of the FSMO roles like flexible single master operation role. It is a unique role and domain level. So if I take you through my architecture that I created for this particular series and coming videos on Active Directory. Okay, let me open it. So, all right, so I have it there. It's taking some time to open. Meanwhile, okay, so what is time? The key functions of PDC emulator. It is time synchronization. So what happens? What does it mean by time synchronization? The PDC emulator is the primary time source for the domain. It synchronizes the time for all domain controllers and member computers in the domain to ensure time consistency, which is critical for Kerberos authentication. Many of the times if you have worked in the organization, your machine, you do not have rights to change the time zone of the machine or change the time of the machine. It is all managed through group policy because nobody wants you to change the time on your machine, because then what will fail, it is the Kerberos authentication. The authentication which is handled by Active Directory is Kerberos. So when this Kerberos authentication happens, if there is a difference in the time, the authentication will fail. So if someone, that is, suppose if someone is in the domain, the machine is domain join. However, if he is not able to log into the machine, or you get an error, the domain controller you're trying to authenticate is not available, you should also check the time on the machine. If the time is different on the machine, maybe the time zone is United States or India. However, if the time zone is set as United States, but the time is different, it will fail Kerberos authentication. And now same thing is valid with SSL certificates as well. If the time synchronization is wrong, Google Chrome or any browser will tell you you cannot access it, because there is the time is a factor for authentication. So this is the architecture that I created for you to show. And again, I'll explain. This is the DNS. This is my forest domain. These are the tree domains, two tree domains. So if I talk about the PDC emulator role, uh, all right, first let me remove all the junk. Okay, all right, so removed. Let me clean it up. Okay. Okay, it's all clean now. And then I'll pick select tool. Okay, so this is my domain controller. So this was when we discussed. So PDC emulator will sit on one of the domain controllers. It is a domain-wide FSMO role. So PDC emulator would be one in this case, and PDC emulator will be one in this case. So, and let us delete these because that is from my old video, and I'm very bad in keeping things clean. Don't worry. And infra. So PDC emulator will sit here as well on one of the domain controllers. So what actually it does, right? So this is the PDC emulator for my forest domain. This is the PDC emulator for this the poemstory.com domain, and Baiku's domain. This is the PDC emulator. So far so good. Okay, so what actually it does, let us read it. First thing is password changes. It handles password updates and immediately replicates them to other domain controller. If a user changes their password, this change is first updated on the PDC emulator, ensuring that other domain controllers can quickly access the new password. We'll explain. Now, account lockouts. The PDC emulator is responsible for processing account lockouts. When an account is logged out, this information is communicated to the PDC emulator, which helps ensure that the lockout status is updated across all domain controllers. It emulates Windows NT4 primary domain controller for compatibility with older applications. It is not relevant, at least in today's scenario. Priority in replication conflicts. When there are conflicts update in the domain, the PDC emulator has the highest priority and resolves these conflicts to maintain consistency across the domain. Then we will discuss Kerberos authentication. Okay, so let me explain what exactly happens. So suppose there is, first I'll take this, no. Uh, okay, so suppose there are the three users, and let us take an example of this domain, the poemstory.com, and we'll understand the role of the PDC emulator. So, and this role is in related to password change and account lockout. All right. So what happens? So let me pick up a pen, and this domain controller is near to this user. This domain controller is near to this user, and this domain controller is near to this user. So what happens if this user, if you perform the password change here on this, so password change will happen. So how you change the password, like you can go control alt delete, lock the machine, and when you press control alt delete, you will see an option. Okay, so now we will look into Kerberos authentication and how PDC emulator helps in Kerberos authentication. So the Kerberos authentication or tickets. So in Kerberos authentication, the system which is trying to authenticate, it generates a ticket, and this ticket has a strict time validity, which is crucial security feature for the Kerberos authentication protocol. The time-sensitive nature of Kerberos tickets help prevent replay attacks and ensure secure communication between clients and servers. Here is how the time synchronization impacts Kerberos token. Kerberos tickets have a defined lifetime. This lifetime is typically set to a default of 10 hours but can be configured according to organization's security policy. So by default, it is valid for 10 hours, and or you can lower it down. If you want to make it more secure, you can lower it down and make it maybe 5 minutes. The token's validity period is based on the issuing time from the key distribution center, which is usually a domain controller. Time skew tolerance. Kerberos allows for a small time skew tolerance, which is usually 5 minutes by default, between the client and the KDC. So there is a key distribution center, and the the tolerance or this time skew tolerance is very less. It is 5 minutes. So you can understand, if a key distribution center is allocating a ticket for a authentication, now it has a tolerance of 5 minutes. So if the key distribution center or the client invoking the password authentication command, and it goes to the PDC emulator with a delay time more than 5 minutes maybe, then this ticket will be considered invalid. This means that the clock of both systems must synchronize within the acceptable time window. If the time on the client machine differs from the domain controller's time by more than allowed tolerance, the Kerberos ticket will be considered invalid and the authentication request will fail. Impact of unsynchronized time, if the domain controller, same thing. And the role of PDC emulator. The PDC emulator acts as an authoritative time source for the domain, ensuring that all domain controllers and member computers are time synchronized. By keeping the entire domain in sync, the PDC emulator ensures that Kerberos tokens are validated properly, reducing the risk of authentication failures due to time mismatches. So we got to know like how the PDC emulator keeps all the domain controllers in a domain time synchronized. All the machines who are uh, trying to authenticate with particular domain controller, they also need to be time synchronized. If this synchronization fails and it is more than the skew tolerance, the authentication will fail. So we are clear so far. Now we will understand the steps in password change and role of PDC. Now what happens in the when you do a password change? So a user, if you're changing the password, client contacts the nearest domain controller. Okay, so that I have explained. So if this user is trying to reset his password, and how a user can reset his password, he can simply go like if no on any of the client machines. If I could show you, uh, let us see if I can show you here, and I do. Okay, and once this machine is connected, so if you want to change the password on any machine, so suppose you remember the password and you want to change the password. In case you forgot the password completely, you can contact the local administrator. They can log into the domain controller and change your password. However, if you want to change your password on a domain joined machine, in fact, if on a domain joined machine you want to change anybody's password, so what you can do is go to Control Alt Delete, and there is an option called Change a Password. So you click on Change a Password. It will ask for your old password, new password, and confirm password. So what will happen in this case? In this case, the domain controller, the primary domain controller, like this is itself a domain controller, but if it is a client machine which is domain joined, it will contact the nearest domain controller and it will validate the old password, and you can change the new password, configure the new password. As soon as you change the new password, it will tell the nearest domain controller. So the domain controller processes the password change locally and updates its own database. So first, the nearest domain controller which is available which will facilitate the password change, it will update its own database. And then on priority, so password change, account lockout are always the priority, as I said earlier. After the password is updated on the authenticating domain controller, it immediately informs the PDC emulator of the password change. The direct communication with the PDC emulator ensures that the latest password information is available at the central location in the domain. The central location in the domain is the PDC emulator itself. Now, replication to other domain controllers. The PDC emulator then prioritizes the replication of the password change to all domain controllers in the domain. Although regular replication happens based on domain's replication schedule, the PDC emulator helps expedite the process so that the updated password is quickly available to all domain controllers. So this we have already discussed. In the real life scenario you would have faced if you have worked as a service desk agent, what do you do? Suppose for now consider these four domain controllers as one. Okay, so you would have experienced you change, a user came to you, he asked you to change the password. So you changed the password and it was done on this domain controller, right? So this domain controller will first update the password in its own database. Now on priority, it will send, suppose this is a PDC emulator, it will send the information to PDC emulator. It will update its own database, and on priority, it will start updating all domain controllers at the same time, right? So suppose a user who is sitting here on this domain controller and through RSAT. So when we discussed RSAT, like remote server administration tool, and discuss how you can use the client machine to reset a password. So when you access dsa.msc, it will access your nearest domain controller. So actually you are resetting the password on this domain controller, and then user is on a phone call with you. He asks you, have you changed the password? And you say yes. Now you ask him to try to log in, and then the user said, I'm still not able to log in with the new password. Okay, now here you need to wait for some time because this PDC emulator needs to send the information, sorry, because this needs to send an information to PDC emulator, and then PDC emulator starts replicating the information. Now this is the replication time which takes, and user is still not able to authenticate. So keep in mind, if you change the password, it might take 2 to 5 minutes depending on the replication time. Okay, so I think it was clear. All right, so let us see what's next. Ensuring consistency across the domain. By involving the PDC emulator in the password change process, it ensures that even if a user logs in through different domain controller, which I explained, they can still use their updated password without any delays. This helps prevent situations where a user might get logged out because some domain controllers have not yet received the password update. Okay, now what is happening here is user, you are sitting in India and there is a user in United States contacting you. The replication time will take, it will take some time, and you change the password, and with the old password, this user, now suppose you ask the user, okay, I have changed the password, now you can try to log in. Now this user tries your given password, which is correct. However, the information has not flown to this domain controller. This domain controller does not know what your correct password is. So whatever you try, whether it is correct or not correct, it will lock your account. This situation, if you have worked as a service desk agent, you have done the password resets. This situation you might have, or I would say definitely have faced in once or twice in your lifetime, like your work experience. So you need to allow before you try it. This is the best practice. Tell the user, wait for 30 minutes at least, and then try the new password. This is one of the best practice. If user is in hurry, reduce it to 15 minutes, but make sure like you does not immediately, you click on save password, update password, and then you ask immediately. You should not do this. It will lock out the accounts. So because there are in this scenario, because I am explaining it in a very small environment, companies which are using domain controllers, maybe 80, 90 domain controllers some companies operate with. The information takes time to flow within between these domain controllers, and whenever you are accessing domain controllers through DSA.MSC on your client PC, you are contacting your nearest domain controller. However, the user is contacting his nearest domain controller. So the information flow will take time and it will definitely lock out the user. So hope it was clear why you face these kind of issues while working. Okay, let us see next what is there. So handling authentication request with the latest password. If a user attempts to log in with their new password before the replication has completed on all domain controllers, the authenticating domain controller can check with the PDC emulator to verify the latest password. This mechanism allows for immediate validation of the new password, even if some domain controllers are temporarily out of sync. So this is one of the process which is logically defined. Suppose you are the user that we mentioned, he's authenticating from a different domain controller. So it will go to when you put the wrong password or your new password, it should immediately go to the PDC emulator and check whether this password is correct or not. And this is logical, but based on the real life scenario, I told you how the password will not work because of the replication issue. This is a logical part, like it would contact the PTC emulator and get the updated password, whether this password is valid or not. But still, there are location differences, there are different site differences, there can be a network connectivity issue or a network slowness, which will make this to fail sometimes, right? So the best option, as I told you, at least allow 15 minutes before you try to use the user tries to use his new password. So configurations you can change on the PDC emulator, like time synchronization server. So time.windows.com 09, right? And synchronize sync form flags manual, reliable yes, and update. So this is what you can do with PDC emulator. Rest all the processes are automated. You can definitely stop Win32 time and net start Win32 time if there is a time synchronization error happening, or you feel it is due to the time synchronization, there is some issue. So you can stop it using the net stop Win32 time and net start Win32 time. So if I show you, I'll go to one domain controller. And when you configure a domain controller, right? So in most of the cases, it is automatically set to use the Windows time. So I would suggest you do not need to change it and do not try to change it. If you feel there is a problem with the time synchronization, you can open command prompt and run as administrator and see net stop win32. That was the command, right? Net, time. So you have to use time here, and service name is invalid. Why? Okay, and net start win32 time because we okay win32 time we have not configured. And is this a PowerShell command? Command line. Okay, we can do that through command line. The requested services have already been started. So why you are not okay? Win30. No, it's not win32. Net stop W32 time. If you do it, Windows services is stopping. So it has stopped successfully. You can see it here. And if you want to start net start W32 time, so it is starting now. It is starting. So it has started successfully. And you can set the servers. So um, definitely, like in most of the cases, you don't need to set the sync from flags manual. You keep it automated. Do not change it. That is my recommendation. So FSMO role transfer or seizure. So when do we need to transfer the FSMO role, the PDC emulator FSMO role? If you First thing is if you wish to change it. Second is if the current PDC emulator went down and you cannot change it, then you can change the domain level FSMO role, the PDC emulator role. So you need to go to dsa.msc, open Active Directory users and computers. So like all other FSMO roles, we changed and change domain controller, and we'll change this root DC2. Okay, now go root.local operation masters and PDC emulator, and you want to change, click on change, click on yes, click on OK. The role has been transferred. Now how do you check it's low on memory? Because it is a virtual machine. PowerShell, and if you put like get ad domain, select object PDC emulator. Okay, it's loading. So see root dc02 dot root dot local, which is my this DC, has the PDC emulator role. And if what through PowerShell command, if I want to transfer this role, so move AD directory server operation master role, identity is the new DC, operation master role, PDC emulator. So now this is on DC02 root.local. I want to transfer this role to DC01. So there are two ways: using this GUI or using the PowerShell. So let us do it through PowerShell. Right click. Okay. Copy. So it is move AD directory server operation master role identity. In identity, we will put the name of the domain controller on which we want to transfer this role. So I'll put root dc01 dot, even if I do not put the fully qualified name, it will identify, but let us put PDC emulator and run it. Root DC01. Cannot find it. What happened? Root DC01. Root DC01 dot root dot local. It demoted it or what? So let us see. Yes. So why did not it find with the fully PDC emulator root DC01? So it transferred the role. Let me check this code. Root DC01. Okay, identity root DC02 dot root dot local. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Cannot find server with identity root DC0102. So okay, you do not need to put the fully qualified domain name. You just have to. But why? When it is showing us the result, it is putting root.local. Okay, root.dc02, and you run it. You select press A for all. Yes to all. Now you see check where the PDC emulator role is. We change it to DC02 and it is on DC02. Ceasing the role, you just need the same command and you apply force on it. Suppose currently the role is on DC02 and the DC02 gets off. It is turned off. So you can put force command and you can transfer the role. Sorry. Do it. Yes. Now it is transferred. So suppose DC2 goes off. So you cannot transfer it from here, of course, because then you cannot contact this. If this goes off, somebody turns it off or it breaks down, you cannot go here and connect to DC02 and then transfer the role, right? So, sorry, Operation Master, it is connected. That is why you can transfer the role. If it is off, it will get stuck or it will give you an error that it cannot contact DC02. So you're going to transfer the role if it is off, even using NTDS util. If it is not able to connect the working domain controller, you can always use it with force command. This is the best way I do it, right? And I need to explore completely the NTDS utility in order to transfer these roles. But I have never succeeded in a situation where this root from the acting FSMO role holder is, if it is turned off, how do you transfer it, right? So you do it through the force command in PowerShell. That is the best way I do it. And if anybody knows how they can transfer it through entity util, feel free to put in the comment section. And now best practices for PDC emulator. You need to monitor it regularly, backup and maintenance. There would be definitely a video on how do we backup and maintain our Active Directory servers. And role placement. The PDC emulator should ideally be placed on a reliable server with good network connectivity to minimize latency for domain authentication and synchronization process. So this brings to the end of the video. So what we did learn in this video is we got to know the PDC emulator, how it works in Kerberos authentication, how it works in password change and password synchronization, account lockout, and how we can transfer this FSMO role and how to cease. So I think we are good. And okay, so if you like this video, what you need to do is like, subscribe, and share. If you feel somewhere I have went wrong, something missed in this video, put it in the comments and I'll try to cover it up in upcoming videos or through my comments, like a reply to your comment. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.